Namaste. Let us start with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I will quickly recite the first 5 verses and then recite the 6th and the 7th verse twice so that you can also practice pronouncing it. So let us do that. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tad Drishyam Driktu Manasam Drishyadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate Nilapita Sthula Sukshma Rasva Dirghadi Bhedataha Nana Vidhani Rupani Pashyet Lochaname Kada Andhyamandhya Patuttveshu Netra Dharmeshu Chaikada Sankalpayen Manaha Shrotra Tvagadau Yojyatamidam Kama Sankalpa Sandehau Shraddha Shraddhe Dhrititare Hrirdhir Bhirityevamadin Bhasayetye Kadachitihi Naudeti Nastameti Esha Navriddhim Yati Nakshayam Swayam Vibhatyat Anyani Bhasayet Sadhanam Vina. So now, verse number 6, I will repeat. Chitchaya Veshato Buddhau Bhanam Dhistu Dvidhasthita. Chitchaya Veshato Buddhau Bhanam Dhistu Dvidhasthita. Ekaham Kritiranya Syat Antah Karana Rupini. Ekaham Kritiranya Syat Antah Karana Rupini. Number 7. Chaya Hankara Yoraikyam Taptayaf Pindapanmatam. Chaya Hankara Yoraikyam Taptayaf Pindavanmatam. Tadahankara Tadatmyat Dehaschetanamakata. Tadahankara Tadatmyat Dehaschetanatamagad. Okay. So the text proceeds along the following direction. The first 5 verses, pointed out that there are, if you basically segment our experiences of life, if you analyze the essential segments of our life, you'll find that you can segment it in 2 different directions, 2 segments. One is Drik and the other one is Drishya. So one is the seer and the other one is seen. So seer in the sense of one which is conscious, one which is aware, and the other one is one that you are aware of. So when you say seer and seen, it doesn't mean only eyes, it means the entire spectrum of our experiences of seeing, feeling, touching, walking, hearing, tasting, smelling, all of that. So the entire phenomena of life, if you were to keep on analyzing it, you find that it has two fundamental aspects, which is the seer and the seen. This is how this creation is made. So these are the two entities. And in this entity, as we saw, this is just a revision of the first 5 verses, that the seer is the conscious entity, and the seen is the inert entity. There is inertness. Basically, everything which is seen is inert. Inert means that it does not have the ability to be conscious by itself. We have to choose these words carefully because of what's coming. So it does not have, is not awareful by itself. So, for example, you can you can see that, for example, suppose you stubbed your toe, and there's pain. So the pain of the toe is revealed to you, and you have the pain. Even though the pain appears in the toe by itself cannot say, I am painful. In a way, it conveys the pain to you, but you are the one that has the pain. And so really the conscious person is the one who's feeling all the experiences, and the experiences are provided by all the inert things. So these are the two entities that we saw in the verse number 5. And we also saw that it is very possible that the inert things may also be borrowing their consciousness from the conscious person. And so, for example, we saw that Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. So Lochanam Drik means that the eye has the ability to see, and the seeing ability of the Lochanam, of the eye, is not its own, but it is borrowed from the mind, and the mind in turn borrows it from the Sakshi. The Sakshi is the original one, and everything else borrows it from it. Anyway, going back to what I said earlier, there are only two entities. One is, so this is what is called Drg and Drsya, and you can also say this is Atma and Anatma. Atma means I, and Anatma is not I. So the word Anatma, so the word in the beginning of Atma denotes negation, is an important one, because the Anatma is not an independent substance, as we were just discussing in the Mandukya Karika class just a few minutes ago. The Anatma is not an independent substance, but it appears as something which is different from you. So it is connected to you. The absence of you creates the Anatma. Anyway, I'm going into a lot of details. We'll probably come back to it later on. I don't want to confuse you. But anyway, the Atma and the Anatma are the Drg and the Drsya. These are the two substances. Now, this having established this background, we move on to the next inquiry. Who am I as a person? So, the question is, you've already defined the two entities, two segments. Where do I go? Do I go into the anatma or do I go to the atma? Do I go to drishya or do I go to drik? What is my status? So that inquiry is now being given in the verse number 6, and we will continue with that. And this is very well documented in this book by Swami Viditatmananda, for those of you that have, and I will follow the same guidelines. These were all revealed to us by our common guru, Swami Dayanandji, and Swami Viditatmananda has done a very good job of articulating that in this book. But those are the same ideas that I will be talking to you about as well. And so, this section by Swami Viditatmananda is very aptly mentioned as the nature of the individual. That's really what it amounts to. I am an individual and I want to know what is my past, what is my future, what are my possibilities, where am I in this whole equation? And so this is now, that inquiry is not started. And what it says is, just a preface to that you are neither drik nor drishya. You are a combination of them. And so this is very interesting. How can I be a combination of them? Because you said there were only two entities. Now you're creating a third one. Yes, it's very possible that these two entities, Drik and Drishya, have the ability to, in such a way, to create a apparent third category. And so this is very well known that, for example, the eye can also be a Drik because it borrows the Drik, the nature of seeing from the Atma, and it becomes a Drik for the time being. So exactly like that, we've already seen this example, that the fire, even though only one entity can be intrinsically hot, which is fire, but other entities can borrow its heat and become hot. And so water can become hot, even though it is not intrinsically hot, it can be incidentally hot. And how do you know it's incidentally hot? Because the moment you remove the fire from the water cools down, gives up its heat. And so that means it is incidental, not intrinsic. So yes, we do have the ability to create a third entity, if you may, which is a combination of the two. Combination in the sense, just like we have, I think, a very good example in my mind, which is that of electricity and the appliances. The appliances are basically inert. And in that example, the electricity is the energy. It is not conscious in the sense of you and I being conscious, but it has some alive energy, very powerful energy, unseen, that it can impart to a appliance. And as soon as it imparts that, it powers it, the appliance becomes electrified. But the appliance electrification is not its own, it is borrowed. So now, using that principle, now let us look at our state, what our status is. Our status is that it is possible for my thoughts to become empowered by the Sakshi, by the Drik, because there's only one Drik. The one Drik, one Atma, which is na udeti na astameti esha na vriddhim yati na kshayam swayam vibhati atha anyani sadhanam vina. We saw that in verse number 9, verse number 5. So it says that is the only, it has no beginning, no end, it is always there. This has to be seen, that really the Sakshi, the Atma, is the nature of always seeing. Just look at it. Just see that. Just close your eyes and say, I know. This knowingness is your very intrinsic nature. It is not incidental. You see that this cannot be incidental, because if it is incidental, then in a couple of seconds you will say, I don't know. The fact that I am and the fact that I know is not to be proven. Imagine going to a doctor and say, Doctor, can you tell me if I am? The doctor will say, my gosh, I have some sort of lot of patients, but no one has ever asked me this question. So your presence and your awareness. So I am and I am aware. I know. I am. Because you cannot be I know unless you are. You see? And you cannot be you are until you know you are. So this is called Sat and Chit. Chit is Sat and Sat is Chit. So the Atma is self-aware and always aware. Sometimes, we make a big deal out of this. Who am I and this, that. It's very simple. It's very simple. Oh, then we say, oh, is that all? This I always knew. So, okay, so you always knew. Why are you... It's just that I will come up to the issue as to who am I. The problem is that you, instead of identifying with I am, and I am aware, I am the Sakshi, you are identifying with an individuality. And the individuality is your mind, not you. And what do you mean by it? The individuality is your mind and not you? The individuality is part of Drishya, not Drik. This is important to see. This is important to see. So, it is kind of like the individuality is the appliance. And the appliance is not the electricity. It reflects the electricity very well. It's a specialized set of equipment that is designed to reflect electricity. Not everything can do that. So, for example, a table cannot say I am. It is really just an inert thing. It cannot reflect. It doesn't mean that it is not it means it is not an individual. In order for you to say I am an individual, you must reflect consciousness. Very obvious. But as an individual, you are a reflection of the electricity, of the consciousness. What do you mean by I am the reflection? Because it means that I am at a lower level of reality than the Sakshi. Well, I don't know. It looks like I'm the Sakshi. Yes. Because when you look at yourself in the mirror, your reflection looks exactly like you. Here Swami Maheshananji had given a very beautiful example. I remember this so well. He said, if you look at the reflection, it is not a complete copy of you. It is a partial. How can I say that? It's a partial. It looks very much like me. He says, it does not reflect your back. It only reflects your front. Which is an interesting thing because you cannot see your back. You cannot see your back. The only way to see your back is to adjust some mirrors. Once in a while, when I was going bald, slowly I was losing my hair. I still had a lot of hair in the front. And so I was under the impression that I still have a lot of hair. But what happened was that I had already started to lose a lot of hair from the back, which is almost completely bald. But I never saw that. And I remember one time we went to some place where there were multiple mirrors. And I saw my back of the head for the first time. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm so bald, I cannot believe it. Anyway, the point is that the reflection also is a partial reflection, but at least the front of you looks very similar to you. The front of you and the reflection are very similar to each other. And so the mind also is an appliance that reflects your consciousness. And so what is the implication? The implication is you are now identified with the mind. You see, you as an individual, you have a choice. You have a choice of identifying. You don't realize. This is going to come in great detail in verse number 7 and 8, more in 8 than in 7. So I won't go into the details of it, but very briefly, you are identified with the reflection at this point in time, not with yourself at this point in time. And so you think the individual is a reflection of the Sakshi. This is a very important and a very beautiful way of inquiring about who I am, and a very important way to gain freedom in my life. And that is that I am taking myself to be who I am by identifying myself with the reflection of my reality. So I am mixing up two things. I'm mixing up the reality and mixing up the non-reality into one ball of wax and calling myself as an individual. This is what it is. Anyway, so this is analyzed further. So it says that this individuality, which is a mental state, So individuality means a kind of like a mental state, has two portions to it. One is, so now we can go back to verse number 6 now. Chit chaya aveshataha buddhau bhanam dhihi tu dvidha sthita. Twofold. He says that the reflection of chit means the sakshi, the reflection of the sakshi. And so, so the reflection and all of this and the creation and all that we will discuss. We were just talking about this in the earlier class. How can a non-changing thing be reflected? All of that we will look into more detail later on, but just go step by step. What is the phenomena here is that it is possible for the chit to be reflected in the mind. Buddhi here means the mind, the thinking faculty, the individuality, the sense of individuality is there because my chit is reflected in it, and when it gets reflected into two parts. So chit chaya, so chaya, actually the word chaya really means a shadow. In Sanskritam, chaya, in Hindi also, which is my vernacular languages, chaya means a shadow. But here, because of the poetic, the word formation, chaya here really means reflection, not just a shadow. Because the difference in a shadow is that it doesn't reflect all the details of my body. It looks like a black thing, whereas a reflection in a body of like a mirror has all the same features as I do. So it is different from a chaya. But nevertheless, the word chaya is used here to denote reflection. Chit chaya aveshataha. So when the reflection, when the chit enters the reflection, that's what it means. When the chit enters aveshataha in the form of the mind, it has two elements to it. Dvidha sthita. What are the two elements? Eka ahankritihi anyaha syad antakarana rupini. So dvidha sthita means eka, first one is ahankritihi, and anya means the other one is called antakarana rupini. The one is ahankara, ahankritihi means ahankara, and the other one is antakarana rupini. So now let's look at this. So what happens is that I have two series of thoughts in myself. One series of thought is I am the following. I am. This is the sense of individuality. The one which is there all the time. It's the more subtle of the two. Excuse me. It's the more subtle of the two. Why is it subtle? Because let's look at the other one. The other one is the thoughts that you use as an instrument. So the first one is the wielder of the instrument, which is ahankara, and the second one, which is called antakarana. Antakarana means the inner instrument. It's literally the English translation. Antah means the inner, karana means the instrument. So we have lots of instruments. So for example, we have a hammer, which is an external instrument. A knife, external instrument. A bicycle, a car, a house to house me in. These are all external instruments. But the internal instruments are also something that I use. Just like outside instruments also I use. So the inner instruments I also use as an instrument. How? I would use, say, let us go there. So you make a decision that I think we should go there. So this is an instrument. You make a decision. It would be good to go there. Now then the rest of the whole body has to follow this instrument. You have to let us walk there. So then you start walking in that direction. But it is all done through the instrument of, okay, think about it. You'll say, I'm going to think about it. So thinking about it is an instrument of thinking. So this is what happens. So you have two segments of this individuality. So one is, I am thinking, and the other one is what I am thinking. These are the two ones. And both appear in the reflection. Both appear in the reflection. So here, Swami Viditatmananda ji has very nicely pointed this out, and I will also say the same thing. There are methods in Vedanta that allow us through the examples to see its application in my life. Examples are very important. You cannot prove anything until you can give an example. So the example here is that of a reflection. So one is the person standing in front of the mirror, the other one is the reflection in the mirror. So these are all called prakriyas. Sanskrit, the word prakriya is used. So prakriya means a method of seeing yourself through an example is called a prakriya. So this is a prakriya of reflection, which is called pratibimbavada. Bimba means the original, pratibimba means the reflection. So this is called bimba pratibimbavada. Vada means a way of explaining. Now, Swami Viditatmananda very nicely pointed out that there is a problem in doing this as respects to applying it to yourself. What is the problem? The problem is the distance between you and the reflection. So there is a separation of those two. There is a distance between them. And how can I be distant from who I am? And that is really, in fact, one of the limitations of this example. As Swami Viditatmananda ji pointed out, an example has always some limitation. If the example has no limitation, then it will no longer be an example. It will become the reality. Pardon me. So this is the example in Sanskritam is called drishtanta. And what it exemplifies is called dashtanta. So if the drishtanta has no differences between dashtanta and drishtanta, it will not be a drishtanta. It will become a dashtanta. So the reflection is the bimba and pratibimbavada has some limitations, but it's a lot of powerful things because it accurately reflects what the reality of the identification is. Now there is another vada, another prakriya, which can be used to, which has a different way of looking at it, but comes to the same conclusion. This is called avachcheda vada. And in our teaching, I've been using both of them interchangeably. And in fact, there are some other prakriyas also. One prakriya, I'll mention that, is the avasthatraya prakriya, which is used in the Mandukya Upanishad, where you have multiple stages of your appearance but you are not the stages, you are the actor. This is another prakriya. Then in the Taittiriya Upanishad we studied, we have the Panchakosha prakriya. So we have kosha means an enclosure of some kind, an enclosure within another enclosure within another enclosure. Anyway, I won't go into the details of that. So this is called Panchakosha prakriya. But coming back to the other popular prakriya, not the Bimba and Pratibimba Vada, but the Avacheda Vada. Avacheda Vada is basically a enclosure through an apparent enclosure is called Avacheda Vada. So for example, the space which is apparently enclosed by a room and gives rise to a thinking that I do not have enough space. I need to increase. We just were visiting some friends yesterday, and they're living in a house, and they're saying we're going to expand this because the living room is too small, and they're going through a major renovation of expanding the space of the house. So the room space is inadequate. So this is what is called avacheda. You cannot enclose space, but you can apparently enclose space for a specific reason. That it's too small, I want to have more people. Bedroom, I need to have another bedroom. Our children, we have now some children are born. All of those things can go on. So now it's interesting, in both of these prakriyas and all the other prakriyas, make a note of this. In all the prakriyas, there is an apparent change, which means there is no real change. An apparent change. So these apparent things are a very important part of the whole creation. And as we were just discussing in the previous class, which is a very advanced way of looking at it, there is no real creation in the whole world. There is an apparent creation. This is how these Ishvara, this is how God has made this whole creation, so-called creation. We keep on calling it creation. In reality, it is non-creation. How can we say that? So because in both the prakriyas, which is Pratibimba Vada and Avacheda Vada, there is no change in the original. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you may decide to do things based on what you see in the mirror. If you find that, for example, if I put this bindi on the top, this mark, I find that it is not in the center because I cannot see it, which often happens. I have to readjust it so that it is in the center, based on what I see in the reflection. All of that happens. But in me, there is no change. I look at the reflection, and I can make faces at it. I can draw some conclusions. Every day you find, oh, I'm getting older. Now there is a new wrinkle here. I've lost some more hair. All those kinds of things are all based on you are what you are, but you can draw some conclusions based on your reflection. So the reflection doesn't change you, but it just simply creates some kind of an identification, some kind of a appearance for you. Similarly, a room does not enclose the space. It cannot. The room is at a lower level of reality than the space. The space is a higher level of reality. It cannot be enclosed. In fact, you cannot enclose space. The space encloses you. You can come and go, but the space remains the same. It's much more subtle. Similarly is the Sakshi. You, the Sakshi, is impervious to change. It's just that you don't understand it yet. You will. But there is no change. And so all these prakriyas point out one important thing. So the fire is always hot. Doesn't ever depend on anything. The only thing is that it needs a medium to express itself. If there is a big fire that's happening in California these days at these stages of the summer, it just wipes out the whole town. Or if you're just lighting a small lamp or a candle, it only has a small flame, and when the wick runs out, the flame also stops. So the expression of the fire may change, but the fire is always hot, in a big bonfire or in a very small one. So the same Sakshi is the same thing. There's no difference in it. The reflection might change, but by itself does not change whatsoever. Anyway, so going back to the nature of the individuality. Individuality has two different mental states. One is ahankara and the other one is antakarana. Okay? Alright, so that's what verse number 6 denotes. Denotes, not donates, but denotes. Let me see if I have some other thing that I want to point out. So one thing to mention here is the word. This is a technical word and you should be familiar with it, which is called samsari. Samsari. So samsari means it's difficult to exactly have a single word in English, but what the sense is one who is constantly has a sense of limitation. Constant state of limitation with all of its implications, all the implications of being limited. So the very birth of the individual gives rise to a sense of limitation. I am not free to be everywhere. I am only here at this point in time. I am under the spell of time. And I am under the spell of space. I'm only here at this time. And I'm also under the spell of limitation of other things. I am not the boss. I'm a person working for a boss. So there are limitations everywhere. And I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not as though this is my choice. To be limited is not my choice. I struggle to be unlimited at every point, but I can't. So this is what is called as samsari. And to look at this very, very important analysis, will you ever be free of being a samsari? Your situations may keep on changing. You may be happier than you were before. It's very possible. But depending on what your circumstances are, will you ever be not a samsari? No. No. So the word samsari is also, this is the beauty of the language, Sanskritam. Every word is etymologically important. Etymology in Sanskrit, everything means something. So the word samsari comes from the one who has samsara. The one who has samsara is called a samsari. What do you mean by samsara? Samsara means samyak sarati iti samsara. So sra means to move, to change, to flow is called sra. That's the dhatu. So one which is moving is called sarati. Sara. One which is continuously and always moving is called samsara. That's our limit, that's our experience. Every minute the whole world is changing. And in fact it's a blessing that I don't see the changes. Do you know all the physical aspects of the whole body changes in some fixed time? All the molecules, all the atoms, everything is just changing. Even now, it looks like I am not changing, but there is so much change going. It's continuous change. It's called samsara. And one who is not able to hold on to anything. I'm in a movement where I cannot rest. It's like I'm in perpetual motion. I'm on a train that might stop at a station, but it keeps on going. And where I'm going, I'm not sure. What a situation. What a situation. And then at the night time, I have some rest for a while. Then I'm again up again, moving, changing, hoping, disappointed. Primarily disappointed. Sometimes I have some pleasure. This is called samsara and this is called samsari. So when we talk about individuality, when we say individuality as we've been talking all along, really this is the individuality of a samsari. And so deep within that, and so the whole description of the nature of the individual, this is what we are studying in verse number 6, 7 and 8. So we'll complete this section which will show you the nature of the individual, means the nature of the samsari. When is it going to end? Because I do want it to end. Maybe I'm happy with the way things are going. I want to be rested and happy and not having to be shifted again. And this is my hope, and I need... So the nature of the individual and the nature of the verses that describe the individuality, it is not just for for just categorizing it. It's not for that. The question is, can I ever get out of samsaritvam? This is the real thing. The other thing is, I have to talk about the samsara and the changes and so on and so forth. But the real reason is, how do I get rid of it? And we say that the way to get rid of it is to inquire whether you are really a samsari or not. This is the thing. Like, for example, within a dream, you have so many sequences of that person did to me, then I do this, that, or the other. And I think Swami Dayanand Ji used to say that sometimes, suppose in a dream, you can imagine that in a dream you killed someone. You were so upset at someone misbehaving with you, you just kill that person. And you are arrested now. And now people are saying, yes, we saw him, and you also admit, I'm sorry. In a fit of anger, I killed that person. This is all in a dream. And now you're ready to be executed, and now, some news is put around you, and so on and so forth. Can you ever escape it? Yes. You can escape it by denying that you are a dreamer. You don't even, whole thing just goes. You as the culprit, the police, the case, the witnesses, everything is gone. So similarly here, my sense of limitation is at the core of my life. You have already concluded that I am just a limited samsari. I am a samsari, not a limited. A limitation is the samsari. I am a samsari. You've already concluded. And you are now discussing what kind of a samsari am I. Can I escape it for a short time? Can I for a long time? But I am a samsari. This is all part of the dream itself. And the only way to escape that is to wake up from the fact you are not a samsari to begin with. Forget about what you're going to do and so on. Let us question the very status of you as a samsari, as an individual. So this is the main reason for this section. So the nature of the individual and so on is, are you really a samsari or not? This has to be seen and shown that you are not. You are not. So now let's move ahead. So here what is said is that really the conclusion that I am a samsari is a union between the Drg and the Drsya. Kind of like a union. It's a combination of them. So we'll talk more about this. And this one, you are really not a samsari to begin with. You behave as though you are a Drsya, but you are a Drg alone. You behave as though you are a Drsya with some Drg in it, some knowingness in it. I have the ability, because it looks very real. Very real. I'm aware of things. I can see around. I've got a body and so on and so forth. This is me. How can you negate this? we say you are a reflection. You're looking at, you are evaluating yourself as a reflection, not as the reality of who you are. You are the bimba, not the pratibimba. You are the total space, not the room space. That's how we proceed. But in the beginning you have to say, what is the nature of the individual? And here it says the nature of the individual is that it's a combination of those two. So this is taken up further. Let's go to verse number 7. Chaya ahankarayoho aikyam taptaf ayaf pindavanmatam tat ahankara tadatmyat dehas chetanam agatat. So he says the union of the reflected consciousness. The reflected consciousness is the chaya. Chaya means the chit chaya. And the union of the reflected consciousness and ahankara. Ahankara is what? The I thought, the ego. So this is not the ego that we normally think about, which is, we say that person has a very heightened ego. He's a very egotistical person. He thinks highly of himself. That's not the ego we're talking about. The ego here is simply the ahankara. This is who I am. The individuality, the sense of individuality. So he says that the union of the reflected consciousness and ahankara, ego, is like that of iron and fire in a red hot iron ball. So taptaf ayaf pindavan. Taptaha means one which is highly heated up, not just kept it for a short time, but a round iron ball which has been kept in a fire and becomes radiant. So this is what is called taptaf ayaf. Ayaf means iron. Pindavat. Ayaf pindavat. So pinda means ayaf pinda means a ball of fire, or any other shape for that matter. Let's say a ball of fire, and which had been heated up. Taptaha pindavan matam. Similarly to that is ahankara and the reflection of consciousness. So second line is, similarly the physical body acquires the sentiency due to the union with the ego. So now what happens is that we started by having ahankritihi dvidha syat. Remember verse number 6. So you have a mind which has twofold segments. One is, here is who I am, and the other one is the instruments of my perception. I want to do this, I want to do that. Those two. Now what happens is that is now taken with the reflection of consciousness. So your mind also becomes conscious. Now when your mind is conscious, then in order to transact, you need a body. So the body in turn borrows the consciousness from the mind. Now your sense of limitation is become complete. In fact, there are a couple of other steps. So what happens is the mind powers the physiological body first. Physiological body means the breathing, hunger, circulation, all those kinds of physiological functions is first of all lighted up. Then they are enclosed within a gross sthula sharira, and now the limitation is complete. So your mind and the reflection consciousness and your body all become one ball of wax, or one ball of red hot. So what happens is that the round ball, which is dark in color and cold to the touch, when put under close relationship to a red hot fire. So the red hot fire here is the reflection of consciousness. When the body, which represents a inert, cold, dark ball, is put into a red hot fire, which represents the reflection of consciousness, it also starts to glow. And now there is confusion, because the red hot ball is now has a shape. Fire doesn't have a shape, but if the fire is in touch with the round ball, it takes on a shape. So the iron ball borrows the heat of the fire, and the fire borrows the shape of the ball, and it becomes a red hot ball. Exactly what happens in our body. First, the chit chaya reflects my mind, and the mind in fact gets in touch with all the physiological functions, and the physiological functions gives rise to the body, and now the body becomes, so now you are in business. You say, don't touch me. I have coronavirus. Don't come near me. Or you can say, my God, I got hurt. The other day I was, we were trying to I have a tree, and in fact those who live close by, you better come and visit me. I have some plums. I think they're all gone now. I used to have so many plums in this tree. I have to really ask all the friends to come. So when I was going to pick up a plum, my whole body got scratched, and this whole skin came off, and the blood started oozing, and so on and so forth. And so painful. And so the body becomes painful. This is me, the body. So this is exactly what happens. And so there is a successive identification. First, the identification is aham kritihi. Then the next one is antakarana rupini. Then the next one is mind. I mean, that is all the mind. And then the next one is physiological function, which are not mentioned here. You straight away go to the body, and the body now gets Atmagat. So in number 7, the sense of limitation, the sense of samsaritvam is almost complete. Chaya ahankarayoho aikyam. Aikyam means the identity. Tapta ayaf pinda vanmatam tad ahankara tadatmyat dehas chetanamagata. So the union of, I'll just read it in English as we finish this class. The union of the reflected consciousness and the ahankara, the ego, is like that of an iron and fire in a red hot iron ball. Similarly, the physical body acquires sentiency due to its union with the ego. And very similar to that is the union, if you want to talk about, between electricity and an appliance. Exactly the same thing happens. And so now The appliance goes to business, it starts to generate things and so on, all the way because it is closely connected to the electricity and reflects it. So this is how the samsari comes into being. All this is to say, to convince you and I that the status of being a samsari is just temporary. You are not a samsari. If you take yourself to be a samsari, there is no way out. You will be within the realm of dream. But if you inquire whether I am really a samsari or not, you will find out that you took yourself to be a samsari, but really you are not. This inquiry will free you. So in this sequence, we will continue to now go into an inquiry into the nature of the individual on verse number 8, which is a very interesting and an important verse. We will do that next week. With that, I close with a prayer and then see if you have any questions. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Narendra Vermani. Hello Narendra. Good to have you in the class. You ask, if I am a combination of both Atma and Anatma, shouldn't I identify myself with that combined entity? Well, you shouldn't, because that is not the truth. It's like saying, if you are the electricity, should I not identify myself with the appliance that reflects me? You may if you want to, but not totally, because that is not the truth of you. You are electricity that can identify with any appliance, not just one appliance. You can be a heater, you could be a fan, you could be a air conditioner, and so your identity should be with the truth of who you really are. But if you choose to identify with your own reflection in a given appliance, sure, enjoy it, but not be limited to it. And so here also the question is that you can identify with the combination of Drg and Drsya as it pertains to this body. You can do so if you want to. We actually have no choice for the remainder of this life, as we will see in verse number 8. But really you are making a mistake if you only identify with this body. You really should be identified with yourself, which is an unchanging, non-identifiable consciousness. This is the reality of who you are. So, Varun asks, is there a difference between avachedavada and abhasavada? Yes, there is. So abhasavada is a more general, means just who I think I am. And so this is a more general kind of a prakriya. Means that any kind of abhasa means one which you take yourself to be. It is not the reality, but you are pretending, or you not even pretending, you don't know who you are. So that's the word abhasa. So that applies to both avachedavada as well as to pratibhimbavada. So that is the difference between them as I see them. We don't really specifically talk about abhasavada very much, because the travel of looking at myself is more specific in the case of the avachedavada and the pratibhimbavada. It's more concrete, more specific. Abhasa is a more general, as I understand it. Maybe I'm not sure that we don't use abhasavada very much in our daily parlance of understanding. Any other questions? One question is, so just giving up the notion that I am a samsari will enlighten us. I think what will enlighten us is not giving up the notion that I am a samsari, but to understand that my taking myself to be a samsari is a notion. So the word notion is an interesting one. Notion means there is no truth to it, but I just take it to be like that. It's a point of view. And so the only thing that will enlighten us is to see right now the fact that I am a samsari is not a notion. It appears the truth in us that I am a samsari. I am a limited person. But to see that it is purely a notion is the one that will enlighten us. Right? Okay. Any other? I'm happy to see you all. Wonderful. Okay, so if there's not, then I take your leave and we will see you next week. Om.